So again, good morning, everyone. As
Good
usual,
morning.
Tuesday morning, 21st of June, and it's our 7th webinar in the Strategic Portfolio Management webinar series today. It's hard to imagine, Jakub, that it's 7 webinar already. I remember when we kicked it off, and sort of like 3 months ago, and we planned for 1 or 2, and now it's 7, and we still plan for 1 more. Hopefully you enjoy the session today. As usual, the webinar will last approximately 25 minutes. We will leave 5 minutes for the question and answer kind of panel. And I guess without further ado, we'll begin since the time is very limited. However, you may post your questions throughout the entire session, so you do not necessarily need to wait for the Q&A panel to begin. All right, so without further ado, short round of introductions. Myself, Christoph, I'm one of the co-founders at Christoph Strategy, Portfolio Management, Technology and Consulting House. And together with me, the other co-founder, the CEO of Christoph, Jakub. Good morning, Jakub. How are you?
Good morning, Christoph. Thank you. All good. How are you?
Good to hear that. I'm good as well. Thank you. All right. So I guess now it's time to introduce the topic for today. We will talk about leveraging the ecosystem of internal and external partners that you collaborate or should collaborate with in the process of strategy portfolio management co-creation. So we believe it's highly essential in the context of SPM, and it can be done, and we aim to show you how today. So I guess I'll, as usual, also start with just a brief intro to SPM. Probably we keep repeating ourselves here. However, we want our audience really to realize that SPM is about creating additional value. Value for the organizations that can be delivered through many different initiatives that can be, of course, of various types. And as usual, those initiatives, initially they are born as ideas. Ideas in people's minds. They might be born in different places in the organization. And the whole goal of SPM here is to make sure that you can sort of like materialize that idea if it makes sense, of course. If it doesn't make sense, if it does not align, if it's not aligned with your strategy, or for any other reason you would like not to pursue it or put it on hold, that's totally fine. But you should have the process to at least bring it to that stage that you know it's not the right idea to move forward. And when you can do that, you can deliver that value because you will be able to launch and materialize new initiatives at many different places in the organization. This is what we will cover today partially as well. All right, but few statistics maybe in the beginning. So one from Salesforce that actually says that up to 86% of employees and executives cite lack of collaboration and actually ineffective communication for workplace failures. And of course, this applies to SPM as well, because if you cannot collaborate, if you cannot effectively communicate with people, you cannot be successful with your SPM process. I mean, you may be successful by executing some of your projects. However, whether those projects are or were the right projects to start in the first place, that's totally different story. However, good thing here is that according to Queen's University of Charlotte, about 75% of employers rate teamwork and collaboration as very essential and important. And this is what we believe is crucial in the context of SPM. And now handing over to Jakub, who will probably start with introducing the crowdsourcing aspect of. I still remember when we first talked about crowdsourcing, and Jakub mentioned to me that imagine an exercise that if you ask like hundreds, if not thousands of people to estimate a weight of a cow, their individual results will probably vary from the actual results or weight of account. However, if you take an average, so that you leverage on all the answers and all the knowledge that people have, the actual average result will be quite fitting the actual weight of account. So it will probably vary by 1 or 1.5% from the actual results. So Jakub, over to you with to introduce us the concept and idea of crowdsourcing, please.
Yes, this statistical or statistician's anecdote about the cow. It's about the wisdom of the crowd. So trying to draw some averages from different opinions should lead to a more objectified view. And I would just still shortly relate to the previous slide with the statistics you have been discussing, Krzysztof. So, I mean, teamwork and communication and collaboration are kind of a general things, and they are important in most parts of the organization. Of course, if we look at the much more niche and specialized process, which is SPM, we may think about more detailed things, and the interdisciplinary collaboration and both data, information, knowledge flow are critical for this strategic process. We will, of course, discuss that in more details in a moment. But of course, it all comes down to collaboration and communication, teamwork, those very general, high-level things. We are quite keen about crowdsourcing with our work, with our approach at Quistorp. And what this crowdsourcing is, I mean, it is not super new thing. It is actually a concept which is quite widespread right now, but still, just to explain to those who are not familiar with crowdsourcing concept, it is not crowdfunding. Crowdsourcing is slightly different. Some people are mistakenly thinking about crowdfunding. Crowdsourcing is basically, in the context of organization, a way to extend and to reach out to a broader group of stakeholders to get a collective insights on a topic. And I think this quote, I think it's from article which was published in Forbes, from what I recall. It is quite right way explaining what crowdsourcing is. So basically, in a traditional approach, when we are working on strategic initiatives and projects, I mean, usually the organizations are somehow siloing, meaning that there are small groups of people who are working on those, and it's difficult, or they are not used to reach out to knowledge which is present in the broader organization. And crowdsourcing concept is exactly about reaching out to those people who have the knowledge, who have the experience, who may bring value to the decision-making process, but they are not usually part of, for example, investment analysis or strategic analysis of an initiative. And when thinking about crowdsourcing in the context of what we are doing, we were trying to figure it out how to make it possible without, of course, putting too much burden on those people, because those, let's say, this broader audience, those broader stakeholders, of course, they may bring value to the table, but usually this is not their regular day-to-day job. So that you cannot burden them too much with questions, or you cannot engage them in organization. Therefore, we are thinking about a way how to make it in a smooth, easy way, yet meaningful, which would make them engaged, and the decision-making process would benefit from the experience and knowledge of those broader audiences.
Let's talk shortly about the actual methods, Jack, because I think we might refer slightly to the topic we covered last week, which was about strategic impact. And now let's focus about the actual tools and methods organizations can use to actually enable this collaborative workspace in the context of SPM, allow people to share their knowledge, to sort of give their feedback, because they might be experts from coming from different fields, in a way that it's not creating like a lot of additional work for them, so they don't feel like, oh my god, someone just asked me to evaluate this new initiative, I don't have more time to do my daily work, and yet I'm being asked to sort of like step in and help. So it shouldn't be done in that form either. So let's talk about this actual method, Jacob. Would you mind exploring this a little about and talk about this ranking tree methodology here?
Yes, so this is like a reminder of a previous session in which we have discussed the more technical angle on the ranking tree, which we think as a tier 1 crowdsourcing tool for SPM. So this is something, this is like a gateway for decision support, decision analysis, which is the core of strategic portfolio management. And we think of it as exactly as a, let's say, gateway to reach out to a broader audience, to those stakeholders which are not usually part of the process, but they should be at least somehow contributing with their knowledge and experience. And just a brief recap. So ranking tree or strategic impact analysis, which ranking tree is like a method for, is a scoring system, qualitative scoring system, which helps to catalyze the opinions and assessments in a logical and hierarchical way, so that we may produce meaningful metrics in a simple yet very, let's say, consistent and transparent way. So just a short reminder about the structure, what it is. Yes.
Right. And now let's so this is method to evaluate in particular the strategic impact, so to come up with this qualitative score that can be quantified. So in the end, you get this total project score of, say, 78, 55%, and you know how much it is aligned with the strategy. You know whom you invited to that assessment, what were probably their individual responses, how do they relate to one another, like who's deviating the most, who's like showing a kind of average pattern, and so on and so forth. But in the context of sort of like collaborative workspaces and SPM, I think it is also essential to get people's buy-in as early as possible in the process, so that if an idea is born and you get the right people on board, and it turns out to be the right idea, and you're bringing up from one stage to another, so from this idea stage to business case calculation or evaluation stage and planning, then to the project stage, eventually you have an asset. If this is the right idea, you want everyone to be engaged. You want people to take full accountability for the actual outcome. And the question is, how can you enable that accountability in the process of SPM? How can you make sure that people really are motivated throughout the entire journey, so that you can highly sort of like you can almost guarantee this eventually this initiative will become a success story for an organization. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on that, please?
Maybe we can still move to another slide, to the next slide. Just to let's say discuss briefly the ecosystem part. So basically, I mean, this is like an example for what is the complexity of modern ecosystems. And you are mentioning several times collaboration and teamwork, which is, again, in my thinking, it is a very general general expression. While taking it to a next level, we may think about co-creation, which is, in my view, like a next level of collaboration. And this complexity, which you can see here, this is an example of R&D. So we have this kind of, let's design a new product. So if R&D is like silos from the whole ecosystem, they might design and think about something and develop something which actually doesn't make sense to the whole ecosystem. So without getting this, okay, is it aligned with our strategy? Can we produce it and how? And can we sell it and how? Will it be profitable? Can we finance it and how? At each stage you have been mentioning, without this kind of feedback loop between R&D, which is responsible for this actual new product development, and the other stakeholders, other important both internal and external entities, it is extremely difficult to come up with something efficient. So I think that the key here, answering your question, is that this approach for gathering this information, for assessing it, for communicating or co-creating needs to be easy and fast, because usually the sales guys have their sales work on a daily basis. They cannot be engaged too much in R&D questions or Q&As or any kind of activities with R&D. Same for other entities here. So if you are able to produce lean and simple and quick methods for this kind of information flow, strategic information flow, then you can be successful, and then you can keep those guys engaged throughout the whole process, yet sustaining this kind of consistency, standardization across the board, which is of course extremely important, because usually we are not designing only one product or doing one investment project or executing one strategic initiatives. There are multiple projects ongoing, or dozens or hundreds of, or even thousands of projects in an organization. Therefore, the method you are using, like this ranking tree we have mentioned, needs to be lean, basically. It needs to be clear, lean, transparent to everyone. Cannot bring too much burden for those other stakeholders. Otherwise, they won't be engaged. Otherwise, it will be difficult to get their insights.
It means people have or should have access to the same data. I mean, it's presented in a kind of a standardized and transparent way. So again, here we are coming up to the data accessibility, standardization, and transparency being the key sort of like takeaways or aspects of successful SPM implementation. And according, or if I understand you wrong, it's not only about bringing this collaborative or co-creating workspaces or workplaces to come up with the strategic impact factor, for instance, which is a qualitative score, measuring how much of strategic fit there is between your particular initiative and your overall strategy goals. But it also can be applied and should actually be applied to sort of like the general economic business case evaluation that will be co-created by probably sales, finance, as you write it. Can we sell it? Will it be profitable? Can we finance it? Probably what happens if type of scenarios, like people should be sort of like coming with those different, probably somehow challenging questions to like probably ensure that in the end, again, this idea, this product will fly, will be successful in the market. All right, so slowly approaching to this kind of takeaways of today's session. Do you think in general that it is also the way that organizations can boost their innovation score by actually evaluating and analyzing more initiatives that will come from like different places in the organization that may actually be quite fitting the overall strategic directions, that may give competitive advantage to organizations? Like, what would you say are the key takeaways from today's session about this leveraging of ecosystem of internal and external partners?
I mean, I strongly believe that when we discuss innovation, it's about funnel and volume. So counting on that you will find that the one idea you will come up with will be the one which will be successful. It's not a proper, let's say, business approach. You should rather create a funnel and produce a lot of ideas which will filter out in the process. And to be able to do this kind of mass process of assessment and funneling the ideas, innovation ideas, for example, if you refer to that, requires a lean methods, lean tools, as those we have discussed in a more during this session, basically. But coming back to those takeaways, so this all comes down to several important factors, several important characteristics which you should seek with, for example, ranking tree. So communication, transparency. I mean, I somehow differentiate between communication, co-creation. For me, communication is something very basic, just exchanging the information and data in a easy and smooth way, in a transparent way. Transparency is extremely important. We are repeating that, or I think during each session. But this SPM process, in our experience, usually lacks transparency, and this is something which is extremely important. Then this kind of ecosystem alignment, so that we know everyone, all the stakeholders are knowing where we are heading, what are our strategic goals, and what we should actually aim at least on a high level. And this alignment also comes with tools like this strategic, like this ranking tree, because they are clear, they are visual, they show what we are looking at, what we are assessing, basically. So this alignment that we are heading the same direction is also extremely important, and tools like that may strengthen it. Co-creation, so I mean, level up from collaboration. So engaging people, making them feel that they are doing something creative together and they are actually part of that, they're engaged, is extremely important. They are not just answering some questions from R&D just to fill in the gaps, but they are rather part of it. This is very important because this also creates accountability and trust. And accountability is also very important, especially when designing future products, future projects, future investments, something which will not be, let's say, materializing next week or in a month, but it will materialize over years. And this accountability is then very, very important, because otherwise we may end up creating unrealistic plans and basically, yeah, accountability is a very important part. Last but not least is the entrepreneurship. So this is something which also big organizations are seeking. So internal entrepreneurships. So a different approach, instead of corporate officers having some small entrepreneurs inside, which are quite let's say, energetic and innovative in thinking, and also interdisciplinary and problem solving oriented. Those methods which we discussed today, like ranking tree, they should strengthen this entrepreneurship, this kind of thinking, the way of thinking, the culture inside. So those are the things which are extremely important, and which can be supported, leveraged through a proper SPM processes and tools.
Thank you, Jakub. Thank you for the takeaways. I guess we may now slowly approach the Q&A panel, as I can see there are some first questions that we may take up. However, before we go there, if you would like to learn more how we do it at Quizorb, what is in particular our secret sauce of like enabling and boosting this co-creation, as Jakub described, as a level up of collaboration, and what is the way of actually aligning everyone in the strategy game? feel free to reach out. We'll be more than happy to showcase to you what is our value proposition here. And I guess time for the Q&A. Before, again, one more thing, don't miss our next webinar. This is the last webinar before the real summer begins. Probably it will be next week, and we will talk how to measure sustainability impact of a strategic portfolio. That will be last webinar in the before summer SPM webinar series. All right, time for the Q&A. The first question: when companies that you think we use crowdsourcing as a way to include more people and get more insights, do they typically include few or many people outside of their organization? It's a good question about like inviting an external partners, I guess, in the portfolio co-creation. Yeah.
It is something which definitely is considered. I don't know many examples of directly reaching out to external people, but of course, at some level, I mean, depending on the type of information in the SPM, because there are lots of very sensitive data and information in this process, and not everything can be shared. But definitely, some parts of it might be shared, at least for discussions, but maybe not directly engaged in assessment process, like not taking those external people as part of the loop, but definitely sharing in a standardized way parts of the information, discussing. It is something which is in some cases used or considered.
So it can be done, and probably organizations should not be afraid of exchanging to some extent confidential information. Of course, if there is trust with the external partner that you would like to invite to this portfolio assessment. All right, thank you for that. The second question we have: companies like Airbnb, DoorDash, and Uber are known to be very successful by leveraging their individual ecosystems. The information that you're presenting today, does it cover some of the success factors that these companies are building on?
To be frank, maybe Krzysztof, you can support me with answering this question. I don't really know business models of those mentioned companies. I mean, I know those companies, and more or less I know how they operate, but I don't have any direct insights to compare against what we are doing here.
I think the key here, at least Airbnb and Uber that I know very well, I know a little bit about DoorDash. However, yes, they do leverage their ecosystem of their external partners to a large extent, but this is the way their business model works. It is to some extent similar to what we are proposing, but it is a totally different kind of domain, because in the SPM domain, what you would like to do is to sort of like leverage on the knowledge and wisdom that you have all around you. And it is just a matter of actually asking people the right questions in a form that it is highly digestible, that they can understand, and they can provide feedback easily, that you can then later on gather, sort of like calculate an average or whatever ultimate end number is, and present it in a form that it is a result of collective, collaborative kind of exercise. So in this aspect, I think those processes might be similar, but the business models are totally different. And I think this is how I would answer it. And the last question that we have now: entrepreneurs in our company often ask for support to find the best people to discuss their ideas with. Can people internally, but typically that be people internally, but typically outside their own organization? Could this way of working support these entrepreneurs to more easily get close to the right people?
I think that this method, by definition, expose people with those entrepreneurial characteristics. So definitely they may help to identify those people in the organization. They make those people more visible. That's for sure. So this is my basically answer to this.
All right. So I guess this is, looking at the time, we are probably just in time. So thank you, Jakub, for today's session. Thank you everyone for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, the last session is next week. Don't miss our next webinar. We hope to see you there. And I wish you all have a great day and great start to the week. Thanks, Jakub.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.